Contrary to what many believe, leadership is not that complicated. You don't need some special degree to learn how to be a great leader. You don't need some special genetic cocktail to become a great leader. You don't even need years of experience to be a great leader. By the end of this episode, you're going to understand exactly how leadership works. Not only that, I'm actually going to give you a simple 6-step system that will guarantee leadership results. All you have to do is work the system, and seriously, I guarantee you'll become a better leader. But before we understand how leadership works, we do need to be clear about what leadership is, because people too often confuse leaders with executives, managers, or bosses, and there is a difference. I love how Jim Collins clarifies leadership. He says, leadership only exists if people follow when they would have the freedom not to follow. Otherwise, it's just power. And power is not leadership. I remember I asked my dad growing up if he thought I was a leader, and he said, well, look over your shoulder. Is anyone following you? Of course, what I've learned since then is that while some people do have the gift of leadership, everyone has to choose whether or not to use and develop that gift. And I was reading an article recently published by a well-respected scientific journalist. The article was on the evolution of leadership, and it discussed how several variables influence natural leadership potential. And these could include, factors like physical appearance and height, or demographic qualities like age, gender, and race. It could include things like skills and abilities, intelligence and knowledge, personality characteristics, motives, needs, and values. The list goes on. And as I was reading it, I was thinking, so many natural leaders have no idea how leadership works. They're simply operating on their natural leadership potential, and that's it. And I can't help but think that if you just look under the hood for a minute, you would finally realize how leadership works and how simple it really is, and finally be able to maximize your leadership potential. If you can master the system that I'm going to give you today, you'll master leadership. Now, is it hard to master? Well, yeah. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But knowing how the system works makes it a lot easier than it would be just, flying blind. It's almost like the difference between driving to a destination you've never been to just on pure raw intuition, and then driving there with a step-by-step map that shows you the way. I think I would personally take the map. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we jump in, I'd love to give you my free leadership resource list, just as a way of showing my gratitude for you being here today. I'll link it below, or if you're listening to this on podcast, you can just go to my website, zackwhite.com. If you download this guide and you actually go through it, trust me, your leadership growth will take off, and so will whatever you're leading, no matter your context. My leadership context is primarily in the social sector, and I know many of you are from the public or private sector. The great thing about leadership is that principles apply across the board. The resources in this list helped me go from nothing, like zero, to now leading a team of over 60 staff and volunteers that serve thousands of people each week all over the world. And I would not have been ready to handle that kind of leadership responsibility without many of the resources in this list. So it's my gift to you, a small gesture of my gratitude for being a part of this community. I hope it serves you. All right, let's dive into today's content. Leadership can be broken down into a system of 6 pillars. And this system shows us how leadership works. And we're going to go through this system step by step. The first pillar of this system is the foundation of all leadership. Okay, you ready for it? Trust. Leadership is built on trust. That's pillar number 1. If you don't have trust, then you don't have any leadership influence. It's really that simple. Every aspiring leader has to start by building trust. And there are 8 ways that leaders can build trust. Let's go through them quickly. Number 1, self-leadership. Self-leadership is the ability to exercise strong self-discipline leading to personal formation. If you can't lead yourself, how can you expect to lead others? For instance, if you have an incredible physique, people will likely trust your advice on health and fitness. If you went to graduate school for marketing, people might trust your marketing advice. If you're incredibly wealthy, people might be willing to trust your financial advice. You can earn trust by having strong self-leadership in one or more fields. For instance, this is how Michael Jordan led. His team trusted him because he had incredible discipline. They knew he was the guy who could make the shot when the time came. That's what he disciplined himself to do through rigorous training. He led from a place of self-leadership, and his team trusted him because of it. All right, here's the second way to build trust as a leader. Get desired results. If you can help someone achieve a desired result, you build trust. I think of politicians with this. They'll claim that they can fix a particular problem in the hopes that voters will trust them enough to give them their vote. Voters put their trust in a particular leader to deliver on a desired result. Now, whether the leader actually can deliver on the promise may determine if they keep that trust, but that's kind of how this whole thing works. And this brings us to the next point. Deliver on promises. This is pretty straightforward. If you make empty promises, you lose trust. If you deliver on promises, you gain trust. So don't make a promise unless you can actually deliver on it. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Okay, number 4, be honest and transparent. So first off with this, don't be secretive, okay? Nothing spreads distrust like a secretive person or a secretive culture. Share your thoughts, intentions, share them openly, even when they're difficult or hard to hear. If there's a problem looming, talk about it. Don't hide those things. Share 100% honestly, 100% transparently, and that will build trust. Number 5, be consistent. Never stop showing up. Stay faithful day after day, week after week, year after year. Follow through on commitments. Keep your word. Stay focused. Act predictably. Be reliable. This kind of consistency builds so much trust. Number 6, own your mistakes. Don't make excuses or cast blame. Just take responsibility for your mistakes. Apologize when you mess up or hurt someone's feelings. Explain what you learned from your mistake and how you'll do things differently the next time. Too many leaders think that this somehow undermines their leadership, and they think that they need to act like they have it all together. And you've got to stop thinking that way. Stop doing that. That's not true, and it's not helping you build trust. You're obviously human, and you make mistakes. We all do. And so the people around you are aware of this. They know that you make mistakes, so own them. People will respect you for it and will trust you more. Number 7, have integrity. Never, ever, ever compromise your integrity. In some cases, you could lose all trust forever. I did an entire episode on this, and I'll link it below. Integrity is everything. You can't build trust and keep trust as a leader without it. When it comes to integrity, a lot of people think of, leaders like Abraham Lincoln, good old honest Abe. I also think of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or Billy Graham or Mother Teresa. Integrity builds trust that lasts even after you're gone. We've seen that time and time again. Now that's powerful. That's what we're after. Here's the final way you can build trust as a leader. You can serve. In fact, this may be one of the best, most effective ways to build trust. Just serve others. Go out of your way to serve, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. Bring someone a meal, help someone move, buy someone a coffee or bring them a treat, say something nice or compliment them. People trust you when they know you care about them. And people know you care about them when they feel served by you. So those are 8 ways to build trust. In many ways, this pillar is the most important. Building trust is the foundation of leadership. Okay, here's pillar number 2. Establish a purpose. Now that you've built trust, you're in a position where you will be knowingly or unknowingly leveraging that trust to move people towards a specific outcome. This is what some people refer to as influence. The question is, what are you influencing people towards? This is the purpose of your leadership. This is the stage where leaders develop things like mission, vision, values, and goals. Now, hopefully, you have a strong purpose. If it's just about making money or growing bigger, I'm sorry, but that's shallow and it's not specific enough. A purpose has to go deep and be crystal clear. Here are a few good examples of company purposes that I'm sure you're familiar with. Google's mission statement is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Amazon states that they are guided by 4 principles: customer obsession rather than competitor focus, passion for invention, commitment to operational excellence, and long term thinking. And they say that we strive to be Earth's most customer centric company, Earth's best employer, and Earth's safest place to work. That's quite a lot. One of the largest nonprofit organizations in the world, United Way, seeks to improve lives by mobilizing the caring power of communities around the world to advance the common good. The Salvation Army, which is an example of a global faith-based organization, has a mission to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and meet human needs in his name without discrimination. Or take the U.S. Army's mission, which is guided by a simple motto that has existed since the Revolutionary War, which states, "This will defend." You know, these examples are clear, they're specific, they're meaningful, and that's why they work. So, what is your purpose? What are you leading people towards? You've got to establish a clear purpose, or you're going to be a leader just chasing your tail in circles. So, develop a vision, internalize a mission, and embrace values. That's what a leader does. This brings us to the next pillar. Pillar number 3, motivate people toward the purpose. Now that you've built trust and established the purpose, it's time to motivate people toward that end. It's the leader's job to get people to take action. As you've probably often heard, movement creates momentum, and a leader needs to spark the movement. Now, there are several ways that you can do this, but the best one is to lead with passion. Is the passion you have for the purpose infectious? People listen to passionate people. So lead with passion and people will follow. But it's not just passion. A leader also has to be able to communicate. Communication needs to be clear, direct, and yes, passionate. There should be no question about what the purpose is. And then lastly, the leader needs to not only point people toward the purpose, but also keep them focused on it. You may have heard the classic leadership mantra, vision leaks. And it is so true. It's scary how true this is. People lose their focus. A leader keeps the people on course. As your friendly neighborhood leadership guru, Simon Sinek, would say, a leader reminds people of the why. The why, of course, is the purpose. And yes, if you as the leader do not fully understand the why, there's no chance the people you lead will understand it. So, it starts with you, the leader. All right, pillar number 4, navigate problems. Problems come in all shapes and sizes. It could be economic downturns, it could be market disruptions, it could be relational conflict, it could be a global pandemic. You never know what problems will arise or when they'll strike, but they will. You can count on it. Like a captain at sea, storms are inevitable and you need to be prepared. Do you have what it takes to navigate the choppy waters of leadership? It's the leader's job to navigate the problems. This could take research. It takes strategic planning. It takes relational and interpersonal skills. It takes courage and patience. It takes a thick skin to absorb the hits and the hurts. This is where a lot of leaders throw in the towel. It's also where the great leaders are formed, through fire. Whatever the purpose is that you're leading to, you will experience problems along the way. It's your job to navigate them. Okay, here's the next pillar in the system. Pillar number 5 is empower and protect. Now, along your leadership journey, you'll find yourself bumping up against various walls. These could be plateaus, could be bottlenecks, could be outdated ways of doing things. There's a number of different obstacles that you could be bumping into. And with each wall you hit, you'll realize that your leadership just boils down to a couple things: empowering and protecting. Now, there are three main ways this would probably play out: delegation, organizational structure, and culture setting. Let's briefly talk about each one, starting with delegation. Delegation has become a buzzword in leadership circles, but for how much it's talked about, we all still struggle with it. Here's the truth about delegation. This is the stage where leaders have to shift from trying to earn trust to instead extending trust to others. It's a big shift. In other words, delegation is sharing leadership, and it requires leaders to let go of something they used to hold on to. Now, I don't care who you are. That's hard. I feel like leadership circles or leadership gurus make it seem like delegation is just some simple thing people should understand. But no, it may be simple to understand, but that doesn't make it easy. Delegation is actually one of the most challenging things to figure out in leadership. Many leaders get to this point in the system and they just stop. It's a wall they can't get past. It could be pride, it could be fear, it could be a need for control, it could be a lot of things. But for whatever reason, some leaders, they can't handle sharing leadership or extending trust through delegation. Now, what's sad about this is that if you don't learn how to do this, if you don't learn how to delegate, whatever you're leading is going to stop in its tracks and it's not going to grow past this stage. And so the stakes are high. You need to learn how to delegate. You've got to fight this one. And not just once. As whatever it is you're leading grows, you will have to learn how to delegate more and more and more and more. It's practically a never-ending growth cycle, a never-ending growing pain. Now, let me know in the comments if you'd like an entire episode on how delegation works. It's a big topic, obviously, but for now, I want to recommend a book that really helped me on this. It's called Who Not How. Some of my team members have read it, and they also just said it was so helpful for them. It's by Dan Sullivan with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I'll link it below, and it's a helpful read. I hope you check it out. You can find more suggestions on this in my leadership resource list as well, which I mentioned before, and that's also linked below. In addition to delegation, this pillar that we're talking about involves organizational structure. Now, if your business or organization is growing, then you'll likely need to rethink your organizational structure darn near close to annually. If you don't meet growth with fresh systems, fresh structure, you'll start to see symptoms like bottlenecks, poor communication, and maybe even frustration among team members. Growth, don't get me wrong, is fantastic. That's the goal, right? But it will inevitably require you to rethink things, particularly your systems and structures. Over the last few years, I feel like I've been restructuring the team that I lead. Annually. It's been just about every single year. And that's because we've been growing like crazy. It's a great problem to have, but it also keeps you as a leader on your toes, to say the least. And then there is the culture that you set as the leader. This is another leadership buzzword, I feel like, these days. Culture setting is where the leader establishes the environment, the shared values and beliefs and behaviors and attitudes that define how people work and interact within an organization. You see, all three of these, delegation, organizational structure, culture setting, all of them are concerned with empowering and protecting the collective group toward the purpose. This pillar is where some of the most powerful leadership principles are realized. This is also the point in the leadership system that many aspiring leaders never realize. Now, if you can get to this level, then my friend, you have done a phenomenal job. You really are a fantastic leader, and I just want to congratulate you on that. Now, here comes the final pillar of the leadership system, and this is where things start to come full circle. Everything so far has been building up to this final pillar. Here it is. Pillar number 6 is the outcomes. All of the previous pillars determine the outcomes of your leadership. If you did a good job building trust, establishing a purpose, motivating others toward the purpose, navigating problems, empowering and protecting, then the outcomes will likely be a success. Now, if you dropped the ball on any of the previous pillars, the outcomes might be a failure. Now, here's the interesting thing, and this is really important. Soak this in. The outcomes will feed back into the system. If you have a success, guess what? You've built more trust. And that extra trust feeds back into pillar 1. And then that feeds into pillar 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And the leadership system starts to get stronger. It starts to catch on more momentum. It starts to go faster. Now, on the other hand, if the outcome was a failure, it more often than not leads to a loss of trust. And again, it feeds back into the system. And this time it weakens it. You see, this leadership system is cyclical. It's like a flywheel. The more you grow within each of these pillars, the more effective your leadership becomes. Do you see how powerful this is? The 6-step system not only walks you through how leadership works, but it also gives you a clear indication of which leadership areas you need to grow in. So let's do an audit, okay? Which of these pillars makes sense to you? Now, I'm sure you're naturally gifted at least one or more of these skills needed within the various pillars. On the other hand, which pillars do you feel like you need to grow in? Which pillars do not come naturally to you? What areas do you think are currently holding you back? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, go ahead and encourage someone else in their leadership journey. Now, this episode was definitely more of an overview of how leadership works. If you'd like to go deeper on any one pillar, any one skill that was brought up throughout this episode, again, I encourage you to take advantage of my free leadership resource list. It has served me tremendously over the years. All right, keep fighting the good fight. Hey, if this episode served you, you'll probably like this episode right here, where I discuss leadership insights from 3 highly successful CEOs, Bob Iger of Disney, Howard Schultz of Starbucks, and Elon Musk of Tesla, X, SpaceX, all the other crazy things that he does. It's a really fun and fruitful conversation. I'll see you over there.